stop. Before you cut another subscription or skip another meal hoping to save for a down payment, listen to me. If you think working harder is the missing variable in your financial success, you are walking into a mathematical trap that guarantees you will stay rent poor forever. Here is the cold, hard data immediately. Since 1979, American worker productivity has risen 4 times faster than pay. You are literally producing more value than any generation in history, yet you are keeping the smallest slice of the pie. This isn't an accident, and it's not just inflation. It is a deliberate economic architectural shift, a silent theft that has effectively transferred $50 trillion from the bottom 90% of workers to the top 1% over the last 4 decades. You haven't failed. The game was rigged before you even started playing. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the exact mechanism, the great decoupling, that severed the link between your effort and your reward, and why standard financial advice is actually making you poorer. To understand why you are broke despite working 50-hour weeks, we have to look at the crime scene. And make no mistake, this is a crime scene. Let's rewind to 1970. The American dream wasn't just a marketing slogan, it was a mathematical reality. A single income, often from a factory job with no college degree, could buy a 3-bedroom home, 2 cars, fully fund a retirement, and support a family of 4. If you worked hard, the system rewarded you. That was the deal. That was the social contract. But if you look around today, you know the deal is dead. You aren't crazy for feeling like you are drowning. You aren't bad with money because you can't afford a median-priced home that now costs 7 times the median income. The reality is that the ladder has been pulled up. So, what happened? Historians and economists point to a specific window, roughly between 1973 and 1975. This is when the Great Decoupling began. Before this era, as workers became more efficient and companies made more money, wages rose in a near-perfect lockstep. If the company did better, you did better. But in the mid-70s, a deliberate decision was made in boardrooms and legislative halls across America. The philosophy shifted from stakeholder capitalism, where workers, communities, and businesses thrive together, to shareholder primacy. The goal became extracting maximum profit at any cost. Suddenly, wages flatlined. Yet technology made you faster, smarter, and more productive than any worker in 1970 could dream of. You are generating massive surplus value, but instead of that value flowing into your paycheck, it is being siphoned off to executive bonuses, stock buybacks, and offshore accounts. The system didn't break. It was re-engineered to funnel wealth upwards. You are working in a 2024 economy with 2024 expenses, but your purchasing power is anchored in the ghosts of the 1970s. But how much have they actually taken from you? Is it a few $100? Or is it enough to buy that house you think you'll never own? Let's stop talking feelings and look at the math, because numbers don't lie, even if politicians do. If you look at the economic data from 1948 to 1973, you see 2 lines moving together in perfect harmony: productivity and hourly compensation. During this period, American productivity rose by 96.7%, and hourly pay rose by 91.3%. It was a fair trade. You worked harder, you got paid more, but starting in 1973, we see the glitch. The lines split. From 1979 to 2020, net productivity rose by 61.8%, while the hourly pay of typical workers grew by only 17.5%, the gap between those 2 lines. That is the wage theft. That is the money that you earned but didn't receive. According to a landmark study by the Rand Corporation, this divergence has resulted in a transfer of $50 trillion from the working class to the top 1% over the last 45 years. Let's visualize what that actually means for your bank account right now. If the distribution of income had remained exactly the same as it was in the 3 decades following World War II, the median full-time worker in America today would not be earning $50,000 a year. They would be earning between $92,000 and $100,000 a year. Think about that. Pause and really let that sink in. Imagine your life right now if your paycheck was double what it is. Would you be struggling to pay rent? Would you be worried about the price of eggs? Would owning a home be a fantasy? No. You would be middle class. The housing crisis isn't just about high prices. It's about suppressed wages. You aren't priced out because you are lazy. You are priced out because your labor has been systematically devalued by 50%. Now, I know what the skeptics are going to say. I can hear the counter-argument already. But wait! Total compensation includes health care and benefits. Companies are paying more for your insurance, so that counts as income. Let's dismantle that logic. While it is true that the cost of employer-provided healthcare has skyrocketed, that money isn't going into your pocket. It's going to insurance conglomerates and pharmaceutical companies. If your boss pays $10,000 more for your health insurance this year, and your wage stays flat, are you richer? Can you use that health insurance premium to pay your mortgage? Can you use it to buy groceries? No. Using rising healthcare costs to justify stagnant wages is like a landlord doubling your rent and telling you to be grateful because he bought a more expensive insurance policy for the building. It doesn't benefit you. Let's look at a concrete case study, the CEO to worker pay ratio. In 1965, the average CEO made 21 times what the typical worker made. That's a gap, but it's manageable. The CEO was the captain of the ship, earning a premium. Fast forward to today. The Economic Policy Institute reports that the ratio is now over 344 to 1. Did CEOs become 300 times smarter? Did they work 300 times harder than they did in 1965? Or did they simply rewrite the rules of corporate governance to funnel the surplus value, your surplus value, into stock options and buybacks? And here is the final nail in the coffin regarding the standard of living argument. People love to say, but look, you have big flat screen TVs and iPhones. You are richer than a king in the 1900s. This is the cheap toy distraction. Yes, the price of consumer electronics, toys, and clothing has dropped due to globalization and cheap manufacturing, but look at the price of the things that actually define a middle-class life: housing, healthcare, and education. Since 1980, the cost of college has increased by nearly 100 to 200%. The median home price has risen significantly faster than inflation, while median wages have barely budged. The system has given you cheap distractions to keep you entertained while making the foundational pillars of survival, shelter, and health mathematically impossible to afford. They replaced your pension with a 401k that fluctuates with the market, and they replaced your living wage with cheap credit cards. They didn't just steal your wages, they forced you to borrow the money back from them with interest, just to maintain the standard of living your parents had for free. This isn't just an economic failure, it is a psychological trap designed to make you blame yourself for a mathematical impossibility. So, we have established the crime. We have seen the $50 trillion price tag, but this leads to a haunting question. If we are being robbed in broad daylight, why aren't we revolting? Why aren't there riots in the streets demanding fair pay? The answer lies in a sophisticated psychological mechanism I call economic gaslighting. For 40 years, the narrative hasn't been about wage stagnation or corporate greed. It has been about your habits. Think about the headlines you see. Millennials are killing the diamond industry. Gen Z is too lazy to work. You can't buy a house because of avocado toast. This is a calculated distraction. By shifting the focus to your personal consumption, the system successfully hides the structural failure. They have convinced you that your poverty is a moral failing, not a mathematical inevitability. When you can't pay rent, you don't blame the landlord or the stagnant wages. You blame yourself. You think, if only I hadn't bought that coffee and chocolate, or if only I had studied harder. This triggers a deep sense of shame, and shame is a silencer. It keeps you isolated. It keeps you from discussing salaries with your coworkers because you are embarrassed, and that silence is exactly what allows the theft to continue. Furthermore, we are trapped by the just world hypothesis. This is a cognitive bias where we inherently want to believe the world is fair. We want to believe that if we work hard, we will be rewarded. Admitting that the system is rigged is terrifying because it means we have no control. So instead of facing the scary truth that the game is fixed, we double down on the hustle culture trap. We convince ourselves that the solution to a structural problem is just more individual effort. We pick up a second job. We drive Uber on weekends. We monetize our hobbies. We sleep less. We buy courses on passive income. We are running faster and faster on a treadmill that is designed to move backward. This creates a state of learned helplessness. You are exhausted. You are burnt out. And when you are in survival mode, living paycheck to paycheck, your brain loses the capacity for long-term strategic thinking. You can't plan a revolution or demand policy change when you are terrified about making rent next Tuesday. The system relies on your exhaustion. It relies on you being too tired to do the math. They have sold you the idea that you are just a temporarily embarrassed millionaire, rather than a worker being exploited. This keeps you defending the very billionaires who are underpaying you, hoping that one day you'll join their club. But here is the reality check. You aren't going to out-hustle a $50 trillion wage gap. You cannot budget your way out of a 50% loss in purchasing power. So if working harder isn't the answer and budgeting is just a band-aid on a bullet wound, what can you actually do? Is there a way to reclaim that lost wealth, or are we doomed to be the first generation that is poorer than our parents? There is a way out, but it requires doing the exact opposite of what you've been told to do your entire life. The verdict is in. The system isn't broken, it is working exactly as designed for the people who designed it. But now that you see the machinery of wage theft and the great decoupling, you have a choice. You can continue to play by the rules of 1970 and lose, or you can adapt to the ruthless reality of today. Here is your 3-step protocol to stop the bleeding. Step 1. The loyalty purge. Understand that company loyalty is a tax on your future. Statistics show that employees who stay at a company for longer than 2 years get paid 50% less over their lifetime than those who switch jobs. In this economy, the only way to get a raise that beats inflation is to fire your employer. Update your resume, test the market, and aggressively demand your market value. Do not wait for a promotion that isn't coming. Step 2. The asset shield. You cannot save your way to wealth when your currency is being debased. Cash is a melting ice cube. You need to shift your mindset from saving money to acquiring assets. Whether it's stocks, index funds, or any vehicle that inflates along with the money supply, you must own a piece of the system, not just work for it. Step 3. Weaponize your knowledge. The biggest trick they played was convincing you that economics is boring. It's not boring, it's the blueprint of your cage. Stop listening to financial gurus telling you to cut coupons. Start learning about monetary policy, inflation, and leverage. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I am building a complete library to help you navigate this minefield. I want to hear from you in the comments. Do you feel like you are working harder than your parents, but have less to show for it? Share your story below. Let's break the silence. And if you want to understand exactly how the elite siphon money from your bank account without you noticing, click this playlist on your screen right now. The Wealth Extraction Series. I'll see you there.